So when I'm looking to work with my clients, I'm going to come at it from a much more basic approach of learning to hinge effectively, learning to squat with good technique, and learning to do a good split stance or lunge position, because that's going to set the base for more advanced mobility work, more advanced stability work, and better control that we can use in various positions that are either more extreme, more athletic, or more creative. A lot of the drills that I do are really quite advanced, and they're not going to be appropriate if you're somebody who's dealing with a lot of pain. And that's something I see a ton of on Instagram, where people are showing these really dramatic movements, these really advanced exercises, and they're saying like, "Oh, start here." And nobody can start with a Cossack squat if they're not already athletic, and especially not if they're already in pain. So what I want my clients to learn, what I want people to start as the basics, is to learn the hinge pattern, to learn a squat where we keep our back straight and don't hunch over like a dog taking a poop. And then also, I'm not in the best position for this to show you, but a simple lunge pattern where we can stay well balanced as we take our steps. So starting with that hinge pattern, this bending in the hips without rounding over the back, I think the most simple way to start with this is to get yourself in a mirror, bend over with your hands on your knees, and then from here, we're just gonna stick the butt out and arch the back. And I want you to literally watch yourself in the mirror while you do it. And that way you can see that once you're in this position, you can look at it and say, okay, my back has this nice arch to it. I feel the muscles engage. I create that mind-body connection, understand what it feels like. I can let go with my hands without losing it. And we can work back and forth for a few reps. We can hold with no hands and give your body time to figure out how to get into that position. Once we know how to get into a position, then we can start practicing moving into it and out of it without that assistance from your hands. And of course, we're going to start this with body weight. If you're more advanced, you can do this with a barbell, you can do this with sandbags, you can do this holding another human being or your dog. It doesn't matter, because it's the pattern that's important. It's not the weight. And if that pattern doesn't work with body weight, it's only going to get worse when you add weight to it. And so by learning how to create that anterior tilt, we're going to start to strengthen the muscles in the back of the legs and the glutes, which are at the top of the legs. And these are known as the posterior chain. And the posterior chain is going to provide a lot of support to the hips so that they can be stable. And then your torso can sit up on this really stable base. And if these hamstrings and these glutes are really weak or turned off, like some physical therapists might say, everything's going to be wobbly and unstable. And the muscles in the low back are going to be constantly tense. And that's going to restrict more, just like being in this rounded position is going to restrict the nerves. The muscles being constantly tight because they're overworking when the bigger, stronger muscles that should be bigger and stronger aren't doing their job. It's just going to create a ton of problems. And so once we kind of learn this hinge pattern, we can start to translate that into a squat, because a squat is a very similar movement that just starts to incorporate more knee bending and bringing the hips and the knees together so the legs start to work as a whole. And what I want to see in the squat is we sit down and keep the back straight. However low we go, we keep the back straight and don't let ourselves round, and can come back up. And so much like starting the hinge pattern with the hands on the knees to really break it down, I'll have my clients start the squat pattern with pauses. So as they squat a little bit, pause for a second, check themselves in the mirror, squat more, check, squat more, check, squat more, the position's lost. And so once you find yourself in this position where you've lost it, the first step I want you to do is try to arch your back to get it straight again. And if you find that you get to the position where you can't, come up a little higher, set your back position, then stand up, and that's your position. Then we learn to squat to that position, And over time, by pausing and creating time under tension, body control, strength, we will naturally start to be able to squat lower without having to do any extra mobility work or any kind of fancy mumbo jumbo, just by literally learning what range of motion we have and acquiring it and using it. It's going to start to increase itself. And from there, we can start to layer on more mobility work. As we're learning to refine the hinge pattern and the squat pattern, the goal is going to be to become progressively proficient at owning those positions, and from there starting to increase them by leaning into them more effectively, but also adding weight. And I don't have any weights here with me today to show you, but if we just grab like a kettlebell or a dumbbell and we do that hinge pattern or we do the squat pattern, that's a really simple way that we can start to build more strength as we apply those movement patterns. And so something as simple as doing 3 sets of 10 reps 3 times a week is going to make a difference in these movements, because it's going to give you enough practice to improve, and it's going to give you enough time between sessions to actually allow your body to heal and recover. And then you can apply that neural connection, that muscle strengthening effect in the subsequent sessions and feel progress week to week. And so I addressed why the hinge pattern helps with back pain, but one of the reasons why the squat helps with the back pain is that we're getting into deeper and deeper hip flexion. So if I do a hinge pattern and my hamstring flexibility is not very good, I'm going to hinge about this far. And so we would say the hip angle is here to here. And so this is a small hip angle. But if we look at this same angle, when I do a squat, this hip angle is going to start to close to a greater degree. And so basically that's going to mean that my femur is turning to a greater degree in my hip, and it's increasing the amount of mobility, relative mobility of the femur to the pelvis. So movements like sitting in a chair, when maybe I would normally be stuck in this position all day long in the office, I can start to sit up a little more straight without having to constantly engage to sit straight, and just be comfortable in a relatively neutral position. And compounding that day after day, when you have a job 5 days a week that requires you to sit for 6 to 8 to 10 hours, is really going to make a difference in your overall health, and especially low back and hip pain. If you need one-to-one coaching, if you have some problems where you think some of the concepts in this video and an individual approach would help you, you can check out the link in the description. Reach out to me. I'll get back to you. We can set up a call to discuss your issues and start to get to the bottom of the things you're going through. So finally, we did the hinge pattern, the squat pattern. Now we're going to talk about the lunge pattern. And the lunge pattern is what we would call a unilateral movement or a single leg movement. Even though both legs are working, we're moving in this split stance position where our legs are going in opposite directions. And then we have to use our core strength and our hip stability to kind of control this thing so we don't get all wiggly. And this movement can be really tricky. We'll see something when the hips have weakness, like a Trendelenburg gait, where as that knee bends, the hip shoots out to the side. And so this position, when someone steps into a lunge, either stepping backwards or stepping forward, is an indication that the muscles in the hip are not working effectively. What a lunge should look like: standing on one leg, the front leg is the driver of the movement. So as I step back, I have to lean forward just a little bit to keep that stability on the front leg. And then as I get my leg back, it's going to contact the ground. The stability is still in the front leg. Then I can bend down, keeping my torso stable by flexing my abs, my back straight with my posture tall, and then my glute and my quad and my hamstring are all going to work together, boom, to push me back to the top. And it's a lunge, so you can do a lunge in a very short stance if you're a little less flexible, or if you're looking to build more flexibility, of course, you can step to a really long stance. The main idea is that we want to have enough stability on this front leg as we step back to stay under control, and we don't just flop and lose our balance. When you're having trouble finding that balance, stepping back, it's absolutely normal. And the best solution for this is to just start in a simple split stance. So if we can kind of go to a lunge position here with our back foot already on the ground, set up our ankle under our knee, set up our knee under our hip, so we have these nice 90-degree angles. This is a really good start position. From here, we can lean a little bit forward. That's going to put more weight on the front leg. And then we can hold this back leg off the ground. And if you can hold for 30 seconds or build up to 30 seconds, that's a really good starting point. And then boom, we can come right back to the ground. As that gets stronger, we can start to just have like a little up and back down, little up, back down. And we can start to perform reps. I like 10 reps and then add that 30-second hold at the very end. I'm a decently strong guy, and you can see my leg shaking here. It's not easy, and it will absolutely make you stronger. Once that feels good, we can advance it a little bit further, very simply by doing the exact same, either the holds or the reps, but rather than leaning forward to kind of give advantage to that front leg to start, we can keep ourselves perfectly vertical, stand, and this is going to create a lot more demand that this back glute stabilize, this quad stretch, but also flex to stabilize, and then this hip stays under control under the center of our body. And this position, without leaning forward, is going to be very, very demanding. Even if you're a stronger athlete, even if you're someone who lifts weights, if you hold that vertical torso split stance with the back knee 2 inches off the ground, you're going to feel it, and it's going to make you stronger. So when you're starting to learn the lunge and you're dealing with all the wobbles, and then we're using this stabilization protocol to develop better control, once we start to feel more stability, we can start to do these full lunges, either stepping back or also stepping to the front, adding weight, or even elevating the back foot to change the positions and build strength. The sky's the limit with these movements, but just like the hinge, just like the squat, we have to start with the basics and the stability so that we can control our bodies effectively enough to develop strength the right way when we add the weights and intensity to the movement. So this is a general video, and I can't address every situation that you might be going through. For myself, when I was dealing with a ton of back pain coming off of CrossFit and Olympic weightlifting, I started to integrate these strength training protocols into my training twice a week. And for me, because I was still in quite good shape, even though I had significant back pain, I was able to develop enough coordination, enough reps, enough practice, and also enough strengthening with more focused movements to benefit me. For someone who's maybe more of a beginner or someone with less training volume, I would actually say, and especially for someone who has more pain, I would say that you should try to do this 5 times a week. And the reason I would say to do it 5 times a week is because if you know you're going to train it every day, it's going to discourage you from trying to add too much weight or make it too hard. And it's going to help you remember that, no, this is something that just needs to be every day. Much like a runner will just put his shoes on and go out and run for 30 or 60 minutes in the morning without his watch on, without worrying about the pace. It's just an easy jog. This stuff should be that straightforward and that automatic once you get good at it. So doing it 5 times a week, nailing your positions, getting better at the movements, and just adding only enough weight to feel it is where you want to start. So integrating this 5 times a week, doing 3 sets of 10 reps of each exercise, with each exercise being more about watching yourself in the mirror, moving slow enough to control, and starting to really make your hinge pattern look like this. Make your squat pattern look like this. And make your lunge pattern stable like this. Is your goal. I'll put a more detailed description of sets and reps and the tempo or the speed you should do the movements in the description. So if you want to check that out when you're done watching the video, it'll give you a great place to start.